Welcome to Real Love, Real Stories TV and podcast. This is Kanu and I'm the host. This is the place to be to hear love stories. And in the guest chair today, I have Sam Walker, who is an award-winning broadcaster. She is a former BBC radio host and is a podcaster here in Phoenix, Arizona. A fun fact about her is that she interviewed James Bond, Roger Moore, who once flirted with her during an interview when he was about 80. What a fun interview to have with her. And also she was able to tell a story live at our Phoenix event. So happy to share her love story. So enjoy. Welcome, Sam. I'm so excited to be talking to you and interviewing you and finding out about your love journey. But before that, let's have you introduce yourself.
Okay, my name's Sam Walker. Hello. I am a British person, as you might be able to tell, who's currently living in Phoenix, Arizona, after going on a kind of crazy life adventure 5 months ago. So I am married to Dave, and I've got 2 daughters who are nearly 12 years old / about 16.
Yeah.
And my little baby is 8.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for that introduction. So you're going to be taking us back. We want to hear about your love journey. So why don't you take us back to, you can go as far back as you want. So tell us about your love journey. How did you get to meet your husband and what did you do before that? And sort of give us the backstory.
I suppose the whole journey to meet my husband started in February 2002.
Okay.
When I completely fell in love with someone. That whole can't stop thinking about them, feel sick when you're not with them, every ounce of your being is tingling at the thought of them, completely in love with someone. Okay. Unfortunately, that person I fell in love with was not the man I was married to, because I was married to somebody else. And it was completely unexpected.
Yeah.
I say that, but looking back, it probably wasn't that unexpected. But at the time, I was knocked down. I was completely knocked down by a feather. I couldn't really believe this had happened.
Yeah.
And I'd been with my husband since I was 19. We'd met at we'd met at college.
Yeah.
We'd got married only like a year before, but we'd been together for 12, 13 years, however long it had been. And I completely fell in love with this other person and just realized, wait a minute, there's more to life than how I feel about my husband, right? And I spoke to friends about it and said, how can I feel this way about somebody else if everything's perfect in my marriage? How can I feel this way? And a lot of my friends said, this is what happens when you've been married for ages. You get bored. You don't want to hang out with them. You would rather be with someone else. I was like, really? Really? That's not how I want it to be. Surely that's
But how many years was that? Like, how many years into the marriage was that?
Only a year. We'd only been married a year, but we'd been together since we were 19.
Oh,
so we'd been together a long, long time.
Right.
Anyway, a very long story short was that I then... this guy that I was completely in love with, I said, look, I can't, I'm married to someone else. I can't pursue this. I can't do anything about this. Even though I desperately wanted to be with him. I mean, like, really wanted to be with him. And I just thought, I need to sort my life out before I can go and be with this person. Mm-hmm. So he was like, look, I'm really gutted. I really wanted to be with you. And I was like, I really want to be with you, but I need to go and sort out this complete mess that my life seems to have become.
Right.
This is after I'd known him a week and a half, 2 weeks tops. So I mean, it wasn't like I had some crazy years long affair or anything. I was like, I don't know how people do that, and I'm not judging people for doing that, but I just think, where'd you get the energy from? The mental, emotional energy.
It's exhausting.
It took, after a week and a half, I was like, I can't do this, and I was completely besotted with this person.
Yeah.
So anyway, that I cut ties with that person. Gutted. Sat down with my husband and said, look, this has happened. Nothing's happening now, but this has happened. It was horrific. It was the worst conversation I've ever had to have. It was just, it was horrible, horrible, horrible. I felt like a piece of dirt. I felt terrible, and my husband turned around to me and said, well, look, I don't think this is a red card, as they say in soccer. A red card means it's all over. He said it's a yellow card.
Oh, okay, like a warning.
A warning.
Okay.
And you know what? At that point, my heart sunk, and I thought, I don't want it to be a warning.
You wanted it over.
I want it over.
Yeah.
And that really, really made me realize that when he said, look, I forgive you, let's carry on. I went, I don't want you to. So it occurred so then we did the whole thing where for ages we went through loads of therapy. He said, we need to go to therapy. And I said, look, I owe you that.
Right.
I knew it was over. I moved out of the house and he was really upset. And I said, look, give it 2 weeks. Let me go and stay with a friend for 2 weeks. This isn't forever. Right. I just need some space. I knew in my heart I would never go back to the house. I knew it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to therapy with my husband. And I went every week for months and months and months. I was so heartbroken over this other guy. I could barely function. I was just so upset. I felt like I had been shown the possibility of what love could be.
And then taken away soon. Yeah.
It was taken away, but it was my choice to take it away because I went, I can't do this double life thing and it's not right and blah. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I went through this whole therapy and it was really interesting because I was asked some really brilliant questions during that therapy, which I've been asked. I've asked myself when I've faced really difficult situations in my life. I've asked those questions as well. And it was like, if in a year from now, I guarantee you are happy. This is what the therapist said. I guarantee a year from today, you are happy in your life. Are you together or are you apart?
Oh, wow.
And at the same time, he said together, I said apart.
Oh, wow.
And it's that gut reaction. And I've used that before, not just to do with love, but to do with jobs and to do with life. And I thought, if you guarantee that you're happy, where are you?
Right. It's the miracle question, I think, in psychology. They use that. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So it's a brilliant question.
Yeah.
So I after a few months, I contacted this guy I was completely in love with and said, hello. And he was really shocked. He was like, oh, wow, it's you. And I said, hello, it's me. And I said, look, I did leave my husband. I've been living apart from him for a while now. And can we have a drink? And he said, oh, I met someone else.
Oh, no.
And I said, excuse me? What? Everything you said to me? Everything?
And
what?
you moved on so... Wait, how long was that time frame between the time?
Couple of months.
Oh, wow, that was so fast.
And I said, what? And he said, I only started dating her to get over you. He said, I knew I couldn't have you because you were with someone else. So I started dating somebody because I thought I need to take my mind off it. And I went, oh, that's not very fair on her, is it? Does she know she was being used to be dated? And he said, oh, but now we've been together a couple of months, so I can't cheat on her. I can't do anything about it. And I was like, really? So you can imagine that was knife.
Yeah.
Twisted.
Right.
In
to
my
your heart.
Oh, that was, I just thought, I don't believe this. But 2 things happened. Number 1, I realised I still didn't want to be with my husband.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely knew. And I knew then, what I'd known all along was it wasn't about this guy.
Right.
It was about me knowing there was more to life than what I already had.
Right.
And absolutely no disrespect to my ex-husband. He's remarried, he's got kids, he's very happy. He's not a nasty person, he's not a mean person, he didn't abuse me, he wasn't violent, he was, all the things my mum said actually when I said I was leaving him. She was like, but he doesn't hurt you, he's not horrible to you, why would you leave him? And I'm like, because he wasn't the right one for you.
He
wasn't. And I think it's sometimes tricky when you get into a relationship and someone's very kind and, I was in love with him when I was 19.
Yeah.
And then people, your 20s is a time when you change so much.
And we evolve with age.
And I realised that we got on really well. We were good friends. We were good friends, but I wanted more than that friendship.
Right.
And it was a really painful period. But so the 2 things were, the one I realised I still didn't want to be with him, that I knew there was more than that. And then the second thing I thought was, do you know what? If it's meant to be, I'm going to end up with this guy.
Right.
If it's meant to be, I will end up with him.
Yeah.
And I will wait. Okay, I want him now. My heart is completely broken. I can't bear the thought of him with someone else. My whole life has been turned upside down because I met him. But that's okay.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. During the time that you're going through, getting through the divorce and living with your friend, were you in contact with him at all?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No. Because first of all, I said, don't contact me. I need to get through this.
Right.
And then when I did contact him months later and he said, I've met someone else, I was completely devastated. And I thought, what is the point? What am I going to do? Hound him? Phone him up every day and go,
yeah, you can't do that.
You said this to me. You said this to me. You said you'd never felt this way about anyone before. You said when you looked into me, you could see into my soul. I mean, all the stuff that sounds like horrible cliche, horrible cliche when you say it out loud. But at the time was just, wow, it ignited feelings in me I didn't even know I had.
Yeah.
So it was horrendous. And I'm not going to say his name, but it was funny how you see when you're kind of obsessed with somebody or you're completely heartbroken by somebody, you see that name on posters, on movie posters around, or you open the paper and there's a headline that somehow features their name.
Yeah.
And I was like, the universe is sending me messages that I'm meant to be with this guy. And it's so painful. And I would convince myself, and I would sometimes phone my best friend and I would say, I know he's going to ring me today. Yeah. I know he's going to ring me. I feel it deep in my guts. He's going to ring me.
Yeah.
He didn't ring me.
And he didn't.
He didn't.
Yeah.
And so I then thought, okay, you need to get back in the game here. I am not very good at being on my own, or I wasn't 17, 18 years ago when all this happened. Right. I felt validated by being in a relationship. I'd been in a relationship since I was 19 and I was 30. So I was like, I need somebody. I need to know that I'm attractive. I need to feel desired. I want to feel that someone loves me. Right. And at the moment, I don't have any of that. Yeah. And I felt so... It's like being starving and just wanting to stuff yourself full of food. So I was like, I'm starving. So I then started dating the world's most inappropriate men over quite a sustained period of time.
What made them so inappropriate?
Inappropriate for me.
I see.
I was a 30-year-old woman... And I started dating 24-year-old guys who some of them were like, wow, this older woman's into me. This is amazing. And they thought it was the greatest thing ever. But then a lot of them were really immature. I started dating lots of guys in bands. And I convinced myself I wanted to go and date a musician. Yeah. And so I'd be standing there at the gig watching them. And half the time... they were nice enough guys. There are some I remember so fondly. Mm-hmm. But a lot of them didn't have a lot going on intellectually. Yeah. I don't, there's somebody for everybody. And I don't want to be a snob about how clever or not someone may be. But if you sit down and want to have a conversation with some people you connect with, some people you don't. Right. And so I would I would only go out on a couple of dates with them. Or I would go to a bar and they'd kind of come and chat to me and then I'd go out with a date. And every time I felt so disappointed. Yeah. I have so many stories of ridiculous conversations. And I mean, I remember this one guy who said, I don't really like music. And music to me is just such a huge part of my life. I can imagine I don't really like sports particularly. Right. And I can imagine if someone who was really into sport, if I said I don't really like sport, they'd be like, I can't connect with you. Right. I still went out on 3 or 4 dates with that guy.
Oh, but was he one of the guys in the band though? Or
no, he wasn't. No, he was. They were.
Oh, he was different. Okay.
He was different. Okay. But he's, right. It was the fact that I would date people who I knew were wrong for me. Yeah. And I tried to make them right for me.
Yeah, the core values and the beliefs and stuff were different.
Yeah. Totally different. Yeah. But I was just so desperately wanted to be loved. Yeah. I just wanted, and I wanted that romantic love.
I feel like we all go through that phase though, I know I've done the same thing where I've ended up dating guys who come with red flags from the beginning.
From day one.
And I just kind of sweep them under the rug and justify every single thing that they do and because you just are wanting that love, and sometimes in the wrong person. But I think, because you realize that and you moved on from them. So I think that's the bigger thing, right? Because
half the time they didn't call me back.
Oh.
A good half of the time, I wasn't the one moving on.
Right.
I was left hanging. I was the one texting saying, hey, do you want to go for a drink? Or, hey, and they just didn't reply.
Yeah.
Or they like would call me and go, yeah, okay. Do you want to, next Wednesday maybe?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, okay, great. And I'd be like, great, I'm going out with him next. And it was, looking back, my heart breaks for myself because I'm like, have some self-respect.
Yeah, a little desperate, right?
These guys aren't that interested. There was a film around at the time called He's Not That Into You.
Right, yeah.
And I remember watching that and it was seeing those women come up with the excuses why someone hadn't rung them. Oh, he must have dropped his phone. He must have done this. And I actually had a conversation with the girl I moved in with. We'd been at college together. We'd kind of drifted in and out of each other's lives a little bit. We were super close at college. And in fact, she only lived a couple of streets away from me in London, but we'd kind of drifted out a little bit. And I'd phoned her up and said, hello, I've left my husband. Can I come and live with you?
Yeah.
And I hadn't spoken to her for 6 months. And she went, yeah, come now.
That
so I went
nice.
to live with her. And I was living on her sofa, literally lying on, and not a sofa bed, not a pull-out, sleeping on a sofa. And I had 4 carrier bags. And that was everything I had in the world. And I felt completely heartbroken, completely desperate, completely devastated, and completely alive. And that was what was amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting with her and talking about this guy who'd broken my heart. And I said, you know, super aware that I'd broken my husband's heart at the same time. So I was just a full-on mess of guilt, self-loathing, everything, every awful emotion you have. They were all piling in constantly on me for these months. And I remember saying to her, you know, he could, you know, this guy, maybe he, when he deleted my number from the phone, he can't find it again. And maybe he desperately wants to call me. And what if this girl is like blackmailing him in some way and he wants to split up with her and he can't? And she was like, Sam, if he wanted you, he would come for you.
Right, he would find you.
If he wanted you, he would find your number.
That's true.
And I was just so devastated. And one day I was swimming in a swimming pool and I said, okay, universe. I said that I would wait for him. However long it takes, I will wait for him.
Yeah.
Give me a sign. If I see him today, if I bump into him in London, this city of 7 million people, if I see him, it's meant to be.
Right.
I was going into town to meet a terrible man for a date, and I saw him.
You're like, the universe has responded.
And I went, the universe has responded.
Oh, wow. What are the chances, though?
Well, do you know what? What are the chances? But do you know what? I'm going to be really honest with you. And Kirsten, this really close friend of mine, when I was having this complete breakdown of why doesn't, you know, maybe he's lost his phone, maybe he can't do this. And she was like, if he wanted you, he'd come for you. And I said, I told the universe, you know, just if I see him, it's meant to be. And I saw him. She went, Sam, you know where he works.
Oh, was it in
You
that
know
area?
what time he finishes work. You know which route he takes home on the underground every day.
Yeah.
Do you know what? It's still a little bit unlikely that you'd bump into him because people finish work 1 minute later or earlier and you wouldn't have seen him.
Right.
But you weren't on the other side of the planet.
Right.
You narrowed the odds quite a lot by being fairly within half a mile of where he worked at the time he was going to finish work. And I was like, okay. And I said to her, but I was reading my horoscope today and it said, this month you will get back something you thought you had lost.
Oh, so everything seemed like that was just like the universe responding for sure.
And she said to me, maybe that something you've lost is you.
Oh,
and I went,
God.
Oh!
Wow. Yeah.
So that for me was like a major, okay, right, this is, I really need to get a grip here. This is now probably about 6 months in.
And what a great friend to even point that out.
What a great friend to point that out. And I was still sleeping on her, you know, on her sofa.
Couch surfing, yeah.
And so that was a real big wake-up call. And it took me a few weeks to get past that and to the next stage of that. And I was still dating some vaguely inappropriate men and just wishing they'd call me, you know, just thinking, where is he? Where is he? Where is he?
Right,
where is he? And then I was like, okay. I know who this man is. I know who he is. Mm-hmm. And I decided to really visualize who this person was.
The one that you wanted to meet.
The one I wanted to meet. I knew this other guy then Kirsten was right. He hadn't come for me. He
Right.
hadn't stepped up. I'd had other friends who'd come out of really tricky relationships, and their new partner had totally been there for them through really tough, rocky times with the
Right.
ex-partner. And it was like, if a man or a woman wants to be with you, they will be with you, and they will face. Because I was like, maybe he's scared of the fact I'm going through a divorce, and he doesn't want it. And they were like, no. This guy would step up.
Absolutely.
He would
no
step
doubt.
up. And I was like, okay. So then after a kind of a month or so, I suppose, after that conversation where I kind of had this big wake-up call, I was like, okay. I'm gonna focus and channel on who he is, because I will meet him. I will meet him.
Right.
And I was 30 at the time, as I said, and this guy was probably 35 or so, about 5 years older than me, maybe even a little bit more, 5-6 years older than me.
Okay.
I could see him. He was tall. He was like 6 foot. I could see the haircut he had, which was kind of cool at the time, where people had this sort of slightly quiffy, flicked back hairdo that was kind of big in 2000. He was quite creative. He worked in, I thought, maybe graphic design, something like that.
Okay.
He lived in a certain area of London called Shoreditch. He would hang out around Shoreditch, I reckon. He'd have like a loft apartment there.
Okay.
He wouldn't be super rich. That never really bothered me, but he'd be solvent,
Right,
he could pay his rent, and he wasn't going to start needing to borrow money or whatever,
Right.
So, and I knew the clothes he wore, I knew the bars he would hang out in, I knew the music he liked, and I used to walk around London, and at that time I did a lot of walking and a lot of cycling. I was broke, for one, but also it was really good therapy, that I would put my earphones in and I would listen to music, and I would see him and I'd be like, it could be you. This guy would walk past me and I'd be like, it could be you. And I'd sit in a bus and I'd like, it could be you sitting next to me.
Yeah.
And I would see him, and I knew so much who this guy was. As I said, the kind of the age, what he looked like, what he did for a living, everything. I just knew.
Yeah.
And in a really weird way, that kind of gave me hope that I knew he was there.
Yeah. Was this on a vision board or just like in your
this
mind?
Vision boards kind of weren't really a thing back then.
Oh, okay.
I know a lot of people use them now, but this was in my brain. This is my brain telling me who this person was. So I was like, okay, he's there. He's out there.
Yeah.
I will wait, and I will be patient, and I know I will find him. But I was still desperately so alone, and I mean, it's really weird talking about it now, because I want to give myself a shake and a hug and go, what are you doing?
I know, right?
What are you doing?
Oh, yeah.
Have more self-respect. You're better than that.
Yeah.
Why are you waiting for some guy who's a bit of a deadbeat to call you?
Yeah.
What are you doing? But I'd be like, why haven't they rung? Oh, and feel rubbish. So I then had another kind of major realization and revelation when my cousin came to stay with me. My cousin came to stay, who lived outside of London. I hadn't seen her for a while, and we've been really close at, again, times in our life. Our lives have moved in and out like friendships do and relationships do. But we were both really, really close at the time. And she came to stay with me, and she said, okay, let's go out dancing. And I was like, look, I'm really tired. I've been working an early shift at work.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and lie down. You sit out and hang and watch TV, and then I'll just let me sleep for like 2-3 hours, and then I'll get up and we'll have a glass of wine or whatever. I don't know what happened during that sleep. Something happened in my brain, neurologically, something happened. And I woke up, and the world was a different place.
Oh, wow. In what way?
It was so strange. I remember walking into my sitting room in the flat where I lived in London, and my cousin was in there. And I was like, wow, I'm okay.
Oh, wow.
And I said, I don't need anyone.
Yeah.
I don't need anyone. I've come through the hardest time of my life. I've had people cutting me off. I had friends telling me they wouldn't speak to me anymore because I'd left my husband.
Right.
I'd had people, saying pretty horrible things to me. And do you know what? I did a bad thing. I left him, and I get that. And I broke my vows. I had so much guilt and hatred over the fact I stood up in front of everyone in my life that I loved and said, till death us do part, and then I left him.
Right.
That self-loathing was huge and lasted actually quite a few years. But I just thought, you know what? You've come through it. Look what you've done. You weren't happy. You weren't content. You saw this infatuation as a complete wake-up call. You didn't bury it down and think, oh, well, I'll just get on with life, it'll all be fine. You went, no, there is more out there.
Yeah.
There is another path for you. And you've done it. And you were living on a couch for 7 months, and now you're in a flat, and this girl whose couch I was living on, we got a flat together because I had no money.
Right.
So I couldn't even get a house, a flat for ages till I'd saved up for some money. I said, you've got this, you've got your cat with you. I really loved my cat, and I was like, you've got your cat. I didn't have a bed for 7 months.
Okay.
And the day I got into my own bed was the most wonderful. I was like, I've got a bed. This is my bed and it's my room and I can shut the door. And that was a really major, major thing, to be in my own space.
Right.
I thought, I don't need anyone.
Yeah.
You're okay.
What a great realization.
It was like a switch had been flicked, and it was just wonderful.
Oh, I bet.
And I sat with my cousin and I said, let's not go out. I'd been out every single Friday night for 9 months, trying to find somebody. Yeah. And I went, let's not go out. Let's just sit together and chat together and have a great time. And she was like, yeah, but I would really like to go dancing. She was like 28, she was like...
She was also looking.
She wasn't looking, but she was like, I really love music. She wanted to go out dancing. She lived down south in England, where there was not a lot of nightclubs.
Oh, so this was like her
I'm
chance
in London.
Let's
go out dancing. And I was like, okay. I said, but we can, no, I just want to dance. I want to hear music and I want to get out. And I was like, okay. She was like, I don't ever come to London. I want to go out in Camden, it's near where I lived, and see the lights and the bright. And I was like, okay. So we had this bottle of wine together, and then we went out, and I was living in a place called Belsize Park, which is down a hill. So we walked sort of about 1.5 miles down into Camden, and Camden's a really vibrant, buzzing area. Loads of music, loads of bars, big social scene there.
Okay.
Very cool, it was just a brilliant place to live.
Yeah.
So I was like, where should we go? I was like, well, I've never been to this club before, but let's go there. Why not?
Yeah.
I love indie music. I love rock music. I like sort of alternative music. I really like other types of music as well, but I was in the mood for that real.
Right.
She was like, yeah, great. So we go in, and I really love Foo Fighters and Queens of the Stone Age and all that. So those bands at the time were like the biggest sort of music that was out there. So I said, okay, well, let's go here. So we went into this bar and dancing on the dance floor, and I saw this guy. He was so good looking. He was super handsome.
Yeah.
And he was kind of looking at me, and I was dancing, and I was looking at him, and I was like, this is like 10 minutes in there, and I'm like, what? But he just got here. And then he came over to talk to me, and he was like, all right, are you going or whatever? And there was something about him, the way he spoke to me, that I just thought, I'm not feeling this. Within the first 30 seconds of him talking to me, I was like,
no,
I'm not feeling it. And so for the first time in like 9 months, I went, oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm just with my friend. Thanks, so have a great night. Bye-bye. And I walked away.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was like, whoa. And it sounds like the most simple thing.
Right.
But I was so desperately unhappy before. I would have been like, okay, yeah, let's fine. Let's have my number. Let's have a drink.
Yeah.
Please be him. So I walked away, and he was like, fine. He was like, oh yeah, cool, no problem. And he went, and then, but cut forward another hour or so, and I look up, and my cousin is dancing with this guy, and she's like, I'm just going to go and have a drink with him. And I was like, oh, okay. So she went and had a drink with him, and they were sat at a table chatting away. And I danced on my own for quite a bit, and I was really feeling totally happy with the world and at one with the world. Yes, this is amazing. And then I walked up to the bar to get a drink, and I'm stood by the bar, and I was like, I'm a bit bored.
Oh.
I'm a little bit bored, because I was feeling so good about myself and so good about life, and I was loving the music, and I was like, I just want to chat to someone.
Yeah.
And it's a fairly friendly bar. It was kind of laid back, and it wasn't a sleazy place. It wasn't people kind of trying to shark on other people. It was everyone was just stood around in groups chatting away, and I was like, I'm just going to talk to someone. And I was like, if I don't get on with them, it doesn't matter, because I'm just going to have a chat with somebody.
It's just a talk, yeah.
It's just a talk. So I stood at the bar, and I literally just scanned my eyes up and down the room, and then I just thought, who shall I talk to? Who shall I talk to? Who shall I talk to? And I went, I'll talk to you. And I walked over to this guy who was stood there with a group of people, but he was kind of on the edge of the group, and he wasn't joining their conversation. I just went, hi, are you going to talk to me or what? And he went, yeah, okay. That's my husband.
Oh my gosh.
Which is just
wow.
ridiculous. And I had no expectation at all.
Wow.
And
did he fit, though, the way that it looked? Physically, the person that you had thought would be the one?
So the man who I pictured was 6'2". My husband is 5'8". The man I pictured was 5 to 6 years older than me. My husband is 7 years younger than me. The man I'd pictured was creative and worked as a graphic designer. My husband was working as a molecular biologist in a botanical gardens. The man I visioned lived in his studio apartment in Shoreditch. My husband was living in a shared house full of 4 other boys that was a complete disgusting pit. He was the opposite. He didn't fit.
Oh, wow.
He didn't tick a single thing on that list.
Right.
Not a single thing at all.
Oh, wow.
And it took quite a long time for me, I think, to admit to myself what he meant to me.
Yeah.
Because for a very long time, I would say to him, just to be clear, this isn't a thing. You're aware of that. This isn't, there's nothing here. This is just us having a bit of fun.
Oh, okay.
And he was like, yeah, okay. And I remember once on a Sunday night, and I was sitting in the bathtub, and he was sitting on the bathroom floor playing his guitar, because he's not a musician, but he loves music. He loves music.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I said, I just want you to know, don't think we're going to be together in 6 months.
Right.
And he went, yeah, okay. And I went, because, I am having a nice time now, and this is fun, and I do enjoy hanging out with you, but this is not a long-term thing. And he went, oh, wow. I said, what? And he went, I didn't know you were psychic. I didn't know you could see into the future. When did this happen? When did you get this special gift that you can see into the future? And I was like, no, but I just want to make it very clear to you. This isn't, isn't a long term. And he was like, okay.
Isn't that funny how that happens? The right one, you're like trying to stop him, trying to predict the future, and like
all the time. Just tell him this was never going to go anywhere. And with the whole thing, I remember though, quite a few of the guys that I dated would never hold my hand. And I know it sounds really crazy, but even my first husband, when I met him and we started seeing each other, he didn't want to hold my hand.
Like in public?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I said, why not? He said, oh, it's pathetic. He said, it's pathetic people who hold hands in public. Or you're just basically trying to show off to people that you're having sex with someone. And I went, really?
What's wrong with that, though?
I was like, yeah. I said, but it's affectionate. No, he hated it. And quite a few of these other guys were like, oh, I don't really like holding hands, or they just would feel really uncomfortable doing it. And I was like,
well, it's not like you're making out or something. No, you're just holding hands.
Right, and just walking down the street.
Yeah.
And in fact, the first time my now husband, when he came round to our first sort of date, he came round to my apartment and we were going down to see a gig, and because he'd sent me a CD, he'd made a mix CD of all his favourite songs from this band called Luna, who are an American band. And I'd been looking through the music paper, knowing that he was coming over that night, and I saw they were playing in Camden that night.
Oh, cool.
And I went, wow, this band that you love are playing tonight, like half a mile from my house. So he turned up and he was like, are you kidding me? I've only ever seen that. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So our first ever proper date was to this band, Luna,
who
our daughter is now named after their guitarist.
Oh, how awesome is that?
And, but so we were walking, and the second we walked out, he just took my hand. Like nothing was, why wouldn't you?
Right.
There was no, and I was just like,
okay. This is awesome.
Okay. But no, I had... and I know that when he eventually said to me, I love you, I said to him, I feel the same way that you do, but I can't say it.
Oh, wow.
And he just laughed at me. He just found the whole thing ridiculous. He just laughed. He was like, yeah, whatever. And I went, I do feel it though. I do feel it. I promise you. I just can't say it. I can't say it. I can't say it. And he was like, yeah, all right. And when he asked me to marry him, in fact, which was at the Glastonbury Festival, I said yes. This was obviously a few years later, but I said to him afterwards, I said yes, but I can't actually do it.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, okay. And I went, look, I stood up before in front of everyone and said, till death us do part. And it was wrong. And in fact, I knew as I was saying it that it was wrong, but I can't do it. I can't set myself up for a failure like that again. And I said, look, I want to be with you. I don't want to be with anyone else, but I can't do it. And he was like, yeah, all right.
He's very understanding.
But he was just like, it doesn't really matter to me. He was like, if we're together, we're together. If we're not, we're not.
Yeah.
You know, he knows as well as anybody that you can be in a marriage and not be committed. So you don't have to be in a marriage to be committed. You know, for some people, it's really important to them to do that. Other people, I've got friends who've been together 30 years, have never got married. They are so committed.
They're life partners,
Yeah, it's just for them. So, he's always just... I said to him not long after I met him, I went, I'm very high maintenance. You're going to learn this. I'm just kind of a bit all over the place emotionally. Yeah. So every time I said something like this, he went, you did tell me. I knew what I was getting into.
Oh.
There you go. So, yeah, it's quite surprising.
Oh, wow. I love that so much because, you know, and I'm seeing this in a lot of people that I talk to. You know, it's like that person that we have in our minds as to this is who we're going to, end up with.
Yeah.
Is actually quite the opposite of who we end up with.
I think there's two things, isn't there? I think it's really positive to have that, if it works for you, to have that vision of the person. But I think values are what is more important than anything else.
Yes.
And we totally order somebody in inverted commas by what they look like, what they do for a job, where they live. All of that stuff's irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's completely irrelevant. You want someone who makes you feel this way, who you feel this way about, who shares your visions and beliefs.
Who holds your hands because you like that too.
Because I like it. Yeah. And a lot of people might think, I don't care if someone holds my hand or not. Great, then there's someone for you out there.
Yeah.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. But I think what can be really damaging is when, and I have friends who are like this, who will not waver from that view in their head, or that idea in their head of they have of somebody. Yeah. And they go, well, no, they don't tick that box. They only tick 3 of the boxes. And it's like, you really need to take those boxes away.
Yeah, I know.
You really, really do. Because sometimes it's, there's the great Pet Shop Boys song called Love Comes Quickly.
Yeah.
And it goes, just when you least expect it, just what you least expect.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what it is.
Yeah,
and it's,
exactly.
It's remaining open to something might be there, you know.
Yeah.
And as I said, and not saying, you realise in 6 months we won't be together, and him going, oh, you're psychic,
great.
Well done.
You can predict the future.
Yeah.
I love this so much. So, thinking about the listener who might be single right now and, wanting to meet that special someone, what would you say, just based from your experience of like the journey from, getting out of a divorce and breaking up with somebody who you were, it seemed like you were in love with, and, sort of walking that journey to where you finally went out with a clear mind. I'm good. I don't need anybody to like, I want to just talk. And then you pointed to your husband and who you're now married to. What would you say to somebody like that? Like, any advice there?
I think it's very easy to say, and it's very, very hard to live this when you're in a place where you don't want to be on your own anymore. Mm-hmm. But to know what your values are, and to know the sort of person you want to be with, not based on looks or age or... I mean, maybe though some people's values are they want to be with someone super rich. Some people feel that way. Some people are only going to feel secure if they're with someone super rich.
Right.
So I can't, we can't judge someone else's values as being wrong if it's their value system, their belief system, of course. But it's really knowing what they are and not settling.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean don't compromise. Because compromise is very, very different to settling.
Yeah, it's like a fine line there, or a thin line. Like, how do you know, whether you're settling? Yes, you're not. At least in my mind, I feel like because of, again, I am one of those people that you're talking about, where I have a list, or I used to be a list of like, he needs to be this, this, this.
Yes. And
most of these things were superficial, right? Like, I should not worry about, what kind of job. Or what kind of car, and I'm trying to like make myself seem like I'm a horrible person here, but that was me before. But how do you then how do you know that you're not settling versus you're compromising? Like,
because you feel it in your guts, and you feel it in you. I genuinely believe your body tells you.
Yeah.
If you sit down with somebody, whether it's a romantic relationship or not, if you just meet someone like we met recently,
right,
you usually get I find you get a physical response to meeting somebody.
Yeah.
And sometimes you sit down and you physically feel just like you don't connect with somebody.
Right.
And you know that. You can feel it. And it doesn't mean you're rude to that person, or they're rude to you, or you just don't find that easy flow of conversation and that kind of ease of discussion.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys who I was dating and desperately trying to fall in love with and make them fall in love with me, a lot of them, if I was really honest, I knew from moments in.
That they were the right one.
Yeah. But then, the man I'm now with and have been for 100 years, as I will say to him, been married 100 years. There were times I also needed to force myself to remain open.
Yeah.
Because nothing's perfect.
Right.
We have big arguments like any other couple. He drives me completely insane. I am horrible to him. He is horrible to me at times. We do.
Yeah.
But there is that deep foundation of shared values and shared beliefs about how we'll live our lives.
Right.
And we both embrace adventure. We're not afraid of change.
Yeah.
We struggle with it when it comes, like anyone else does, and all these other things. But
yeah,
I think it's working out what your values are, and when you know who you are and when you know what your beliefs and values are, that's the place, that's where to start. And it's so hard because you can't fake it. And I couldn't fake, hey, I don't care, I don't need anybody. If 2 months before I tried to go out with that attitude of I don't need anyone, it wouldn't have worked. You can't fake it. You can't. But it's just knowing and trusting that it will happen.
I like that. I recently did an episode where I talked about exactly that you should know your core values. You should know who you are. Like, what are your needs? What are your wants? So that when that person comes, he may not look like the person that you envision in your mind, but if it fits that, the core values, the shared beliefs and all that, you'd be able to identify who he is, right? So I recorded an episode like that last month where I shared that with my audience. So awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time to share your love journey. This is so awesome. So thank you for being a part of Real Love, Real Stories.
It was really nice to see you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening, and all the way to the end. I am genuinely so grateful. So now you can continue to show your support in a few different ways. The first one is, if you can think of someone who might benefit from this episode, please send it to them. And the second thing is, we all are on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and the like. So please share this episode. And I love it when people tag me to their post. And 3, head over to iTunes. You can leave a review and you can rate this episode. All your feedback is very helpful, and it helps this podcast get visible so others can listen to all these great stories. Thank you so much. Till next time.